Hey friends, I wanted to invite you to join me today as I am processing some thoughts and emotions. I had a little situation this morning that just left me with a lot of emotion, and so I decided to write it all down. I've always kept journals for recording my thoughts, and but sometimes when I go back over them, I don't really want to return to that yucky place. So I thought I would take all the things that I got off my chest and got on paper and tear them up, and I'm going to collage them. And sometimes a lot of the stress and anxiety that I experience in life is due to some kind of lie that I'm believing, or I'm putting my trust in the wrong place. Or so while I need to acknowledge those thoughts, I don't want to remain in that spot. And I also don't want to memorialize that either. I'd rather look back on journals and remember the truth that superseded the lies that I believed. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do with my art journaling. So I'm going to take my thoughts from this morning, and I'm going to just decoupage or collage them in any particular order. This book came from a thrift store, the Goodwill bins. It's just a kid's book that lays nice and flat and has nice big pages. I haven't started, this is my first page that I'm doing in it. And so I might actually designate this art journal for this type of thing when I need to process some thoughts or emotions, and kind of follow this pattern of journaling them with my handwriting and then deciding what needs to cover that problem or that area of my life. So I know this looks totally staged, but I promise you it wasn't. I was ready to start watercoloring and moved the book over and found another piece. And interestingly enough, it was from the top of the page where I started, and it contained the deepest emotions that I was feeling this morning. So interestingly enough, it was kind of like an object lesson, because we can try to let go of things and heal and move forward and get the right frame of mind and the right thinking. But if we lose that little piece or leave a little bit of that lie left behind, then it will come back to get us later. So I'm glad that I found it so that I can include it on this page and cover it. So I started by covering with black and darker colors. I like really bright, vivid, happy colors, but because I wanted to kind of, because this was kind of an ugly thought that I had this morning, I wanted to just, first of all, I wanted to cover it completely. So I needed something dark. But I also just, it was kind of a dark mood I was in. So I wanted to begin by coloring it with darkness. However, I knew that this was going to not be the end. And I knew that I was going to add color and life on top of this darkness, because I don't ever want to stay in a dark spot. I want to acknowledge it, because if we ignore things, that doesn't solve anything either. But I also don't want to, like I said, I don't want to stay in that spot. So then I got some acrylic paint out and decided to fill in the border with black. Again, just kind of carrying on the completion of the page. I wanted it to be completely filled in with no room for margin. Next, I used some masking tape to create lines for words. At this point, I hadn't even really decided exactly what I was going to write, but I knew that I had to reflect on my mood this morning and my thinking, and what did I need to believe in order to replace my wrong thinking. And I want to say here, I am not trying to invalidate anyone's pain. I just know that usually for me, there's a lie that I'm believing, like I'm a bad mom, or my family doesn't care, doesn't love me. Those kind of the things are the things in my mind that I battle with sometimes. And but there's also a pain that comes from someone hurting you, wounding you, abuse that didn't necessarily originate with a lie, but the darkness will use that against you, try to convince you that not valuable, or that you deserve it, or something like that. For me, I look to God for the truth, and He defines who I am. There's a man in the New Testament that struggled with something over and over and asked God to take it away from him, and what he believed God's response was, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." So this really spoke to me for this morning, because even though I am weak, I shouldn't fear my own weakness. I acknowledge it, because it helps me realize how much I'm in need of His grace, and that His grace is sufficient for me. And He helps me. He cares. He sees what's going on. He understands my struggles, and wants to journey with me to overcome lies and fill me with the truth. I realize that you may not share my faith in God, and if you're still watching and haven't been offended, that I hope that you can glean the principle of good over darkness, in the fact that there are things that in our minds that simply are not true, that we need to be intentional about replacing with what is true. You are valuable, and your feelings are valid, and but sometimes our feelings lie to us, and so we need to talk to ourselves and tell ourselves what we do know is true. So I hope that you enjoyed watching my process, and that it helps you if you're going through whatever, anger, hurt, pain. I tend to think that anger is a secondary emotion, and there's pain underneath it, but hopefully this will help you process.